each and every one of you to the annual CSULB Legacy Lecture. We are here today to honor a very, very important person at CSULB, and that is Dee Abrahamse. I have to tell you that as academics, as we all know, we love to deliberate on issues. And normally in selecting a legacy lecture, there's quite a long deliberative process. But last year, when the group got together to make the decision on who would be the legacy lecturer, one person started the meeting by saying, you know, I really think that Dee is the ideal person. And everyone collectively at the same time said, well, of course. Deliberations were over. In my nearly 20 years at CSULB, it was the quickest and most convivial meeting I had ever attended. I'm delighted to be able to introduce today Gary Richard, who is visiting us from the Chancellor's office. And Gary is going to be here to share with us some thoughts that he has about Dee and to introduce her as our legacy lecturer. And so on with the program, and thank you all for coming.
Greetings, colleagues. During the years I spent on this campus, I came to regard the Legacy Lecture as one of its most wonderful and symbolic traditions, along with the always uplifting convocation, the warm community of the Faculty Supper Club, and the consistent collegiality of shared governance. Honorees in the Legacy Lecture series have always represented the very best that CSULB has to offer, and the heart of the way the institution operates. Not only are legacy lecturers always outstanding and inspirational teachers, but they're warm human beings, deeply loyal members of the CSULB community, and caring mentors. I've often thought that in addition to being a wonderful honor to be selected to give a legacy lecture, it must also strike the honoree as a very heavy responsibility to measure up to the amazing role models that have come up to this lectern to deliver their words of wisdom on this august occasion. Today's honoree is absolutely in this sterling tradition. Some of you have had the pleasure and opportunity to have known and worked with Dee Abrahamse for many years more than I. But in the more than 12 years that I've known and worked with her, I've developed strong admiration and deep affection for Dee. She's everything I just described: a born educator, a warm human being, a devoted member of the CSULB family, and a mentor to scores of colleagues with whom she's worked. For the entire period that I served on this campus, Dee was Dean of the College of Liberal Arts. I've always considered her the model for any new dean to follow. She was the founding dean of her sprawling college, which includes over 35% of the faculty in this institution, but was able to create a sense of unity and belonging for faculty, staff, and students that would be remarkable even in a small college. Most impressive is the esprit de corps she's generated in cohort after cohort of new faculty in the CLA. I would predict this will be one of her most outstanding legacies in a list that will be long. Dee has done this not out of duty. She's done it because she really cares about her many junior colleagues who've come to CSULB over the past several years and who are this university's future. She's accomplished this through active and caring mentoring, but also through personal attachment and through intellectual connection. All who know Dee know that she genuinely cares about the intellectual interests of her colleagues. And get this, she reads what they write. As one who for years read RTP evaluations from department committees, college committees, and deans, I never found any that were more thoughtful or better informed than Dee's commentaries on the teaching and research accomplishments of her CLA colleagues. Although the size of her college usually required her to author 60 to 100 such commentaries every spring, each one was a work of art, reading in most cases like a polished scholarly essay. How in the world she manages year after year, I have no idea. She didn't look especially tired every morning. Since this is the Legacy Lecture, which honors teaching above all, let me add this. Dee's appreciation for and detailed understanding of her colleagues' teaching and its effects on student learning are really unmatched in my experience. She cares deeply about how students learn and how they're affected by varied pedagogical approaches and practices. Even while she served as dean, she regularly taught her course in Byzantine history. I've often thought how extremely appropriate her specialty to her administrative career. When history department colleagues formed a teaching circle a few years back to revamp the historiography course that's required of majors, Dee was a regular participant, learning and sharing knowledge about how to build an outcomes-based curriculum from the ground up. She's been active for several years in the work of the Education Trust and its focus on meaningful outcomes assessment. And she was, of course, a moving force in Cal State Long Beach's nationally renowned seamless partnership with Long Beach Unified School District. She even took, realizing how important it was for her students, classes in beach board, so she could put Byzantine history up there on the web. All of this, remember, while she was deaning what is by far the largest college on this campus. An alumna of one of our country's finest liberal arts institutions, Mount Holyoke, Dee Abrahamse is also an exemplar and forceful advocate for the highest quality liberal education. She has done so much to advance this cause in her years as teacher and academic leader on this campus, and beyond, I should add. In the 1980s, when the world history movement was struggling to gain a foothold in history departments across the United States, Dee was a spearhead for its introduction into general education curricula. The strength of world history at Cal State Long Beach reflects her support and nurturing over the years, as well, of course, as the commitment of other fine members of the history department faculty. She also has been a great and highly noteworthy friend of foreign language study. Cal State Long Beach is very, very fortunate that in the dark years of the early 90s, when budgets and curricula were being slashed all around us, the College of Liberal Arts had Dee Abrahamse as its dean, and languages, even those with low enrollments, were spared the knife to come back and see another better day. More recently, Dee has been the key player in the successful development of a 7-campus collaborative known as the Strategic Language Initiative, which has already received more than $1 million in federal funding with promises of more, and is picking up steam with each passing year. The SLI, as it's called, in fact, guided as it has been by Dee's collaborative spirit, is emerging as a model of the kind of multi-campus collaboratives that the CSU system needs to grow in great numbers. Finally, Dee has been immensely supportive of interdisciplinary teaching and research. As dean, she has fostered new degree programs in the college. Are you ready for this list? Including international studies, women's studies, classical studies, Chinese studies, Asian American studies, Italian studies, French studies, environmental science and policy with the College of Natural Sciences and Math, religious studies, Latin American studies, Jewish studies, medieval and Renaissance studies. She probably did all this so she could get in medieval and Renaissance studies, and Middle Eastern studies. She's also fostered and supported interdisciplinary research groups in the college and with other colleges. I could go on, but you came here to hear Dee, not me. I don't want to end, however, without sharing with you a quote from another one of Cal State Long Beach's faculty treasures, my old pal Sim Crowther. As I told Sim when I sought his permission to quote him, I wanted to add a little class and gravitas to my remarks by including some of his words. In preparing to introduce Dee today, I sent a query to some of her longer-time colleagues here, asking them if they had any thoughts they might be willing to share with me. I heard from Sim, and he said it so well, I want to quote him here. Unfortunately, unlike her wacky contemporaries, among which he included himself, and some others of you in here I won't name, Dee never was the subject of cautionary tales of extravagant folly. This doesn't sound right, not in Sim's voice, but they are his words. She was always a voice of reason with creative ideas and a reputation for being very supportive of colleagues. There are a number of my colleagues, he wrote, whom I might cite as model faculty members. There are, after all, a number of ways to do this job well. But Dee is certainly my favorite model because of her strong multidisciplinary interests. And this is the line I love. She has more intellectual curiosity than some departments I've dealt with. You see why I had to read it. It is just perfect. I can't do better than Sim did in summing up why this wonderful colleague And my dear friend, Dee Abrahamse, has been selected to join the distinguished company of Cal State Long Beach's Legacy Lectures. Friends and colleagues, it's my deep honor and delight to introduce to you Dee Abrahamse.
Wow, after that introduction, I'm not sure I have anything left to say, but I can't think of anybody who has been such a friend and leader to all of us in academic affairs, who has really been, I think, the epitome of the time when Cal State Long Beach started to think of all the things we could be, and that there were very few limits on what we could dream and aspire about. So Gary, it's a real treat to have had you come, and it's a treat to have you have been my friend all these years. The invitation to give the Legacy Lecture this year was just a wonderful honor, and when I got asked to do it, I was really glad to accept so I could have a public chance to talk about some of the things I most value about this campus. That was until I started trying to write the lecture. And then I have to admit, I thought about how we now know that lecturing is one of the least effective forms of teaching, and I thought maybe I should do something else with all of you. But I am going to talk anyway, and I promise, since I'm a historian, to have some visual primary sources for you. I want to start by looking out, as I look out and at people in the audience, I recognize there are more different groups of people who have meant a lot to me, and I wanted to recognize some of them. First of all, I think there are some former Legacy lecturers here, and I want to, especially all of you are people I have admired. I know that, let's see, John was one, right? And Dixie. Is there anyone else here that I haven't seen who is? Oh, and Dot was a Legacy lecturer. And Nancy. So all of you, I remember your lectures. I've gained so much from them, and I think what I've learned from all those lectures have been real legacies to the campus, and so it's a great honor to be in your company. And I want to thank Terry Allen and the Faculty Professional Development Center, and Penelope, who is an incredible organizer. I think she could organize absolutely anything. She, 2 months ago, asked me what I wanted on the menu for the reception. And Christy French and Bob Fraley, since I'm going to show you some pictures from the university archives that they both helped me with. And I'm especially happy to have here some former colleagues, some retired faculty who've meant a great deal to me in the past. And I particularly wanted to welcome Alex and Mia Lipsky, who were very early and long-time wonderful friends and mentors, and Jack Nygaard, Christy Jones, with whom I've done lots of things, and I can't see, these are, and then there's some other people back there that are my old history buddies that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So first not in a bad way. But I would like to recognize my old colleagues in the history department who came about the time I did, Al Guns and Albie Burke and Sharon Sievers and Bill Weber, and then many more recent history colleagues who've meant a great deal to me. They've been continuing friends. They've let me teach and continue to think of myself as a member of the department to this day, even though I really realize that I've spent more than half my career here on the dark side. Then in the old College of Social and Behavioral Sciences and the College of Liberal Arts, I worked with an extraordinary group of faculty and department chairs, associate deans, I think sort of long-suffering associate deans, and deans and staff who have worked together on plans, on ideas and problems, shared some difficult times and many good ideas and a lot of fun, and I think put up with a lot of nonstop ideas that I thought would be great things to try without having really thought through always who was actually going to do them. So I want to particularly recognize all of those friends who are here. And as Gary said, I think probably the most satisfying thing that I have been able to do here is to hire, mentor, and promote, in a lot of cases, a large and wonderful group of new faculty. Over half the faculty of the College of Liberal Arts have been hired since I became dean, and their ideas, their energy, their enthusiasm, and their friendship just mean so much to our present and future, and they mean so much to me personally that I'm really, those of you who are here, you mean a great deal to me, especially that you are here. In the last decade, I think this campus has had an extraordinarily collegial group of leaders in its administration, and the collaborative work that we've done together, my fellow deans, the academic affairs, senior staff and junior staff, and colleagues across campus, and the other vice presidents, I think our friendship, our working together has been just an extraordinary experience. And finally, well, two more groups of people. Everybody needs a hobby, and my hobby, my passion is singing, and some of my choir friends are here, and I really want to thank them for coming. Finally, it's typical to thank your spouse, and in this case, I really do mean this. My husband, Alan, has always encouraged me to take on roles that I was offered. He's helped me think about problems that I bring home. He's put up for many years with a very messy house and taken on increasing family responsibilities. So I particularly want to, he doesn't get many public thanks, so in this case I really want to offer the. Now the people I wish I could see and acknowledge more here are the students I've had over the years who are no longer associated with the university, because what I want to talk about is largely their story. When I was asked to give this lecture, I suddenly realized that I've not only spent more than half my life in this university, but I have been here for more than half the university's history. And Long Beach State College, as it was called when I arrived in 1967, was only 18 years old. The themes I want to talk about today are related to that history. I want to talk about the public commitments of the university to its students, its faculty, and the community, both inside and outside the campus, and how it responds to change. And since I'm a historian, what I know how to do is look at the past and look at artifacts from the past, and I decided to really examine these themes through Cal State Long Beach's history in the context of California and post-World War II America. Since this is a legacy lecture, you'll get some reflections on my own life and career as part of that. I also have a commercial. For several years, a group of faculty, led by Sim Crowther, have been working on a history of Cal State Long Beach. And I wanted to use this lecture to invite you all to be part of that. And to give you a little taste of the materials in the university archives. I'm not a Californian, nor even an American historian, but I believe that Cal State Long Beach can be a critical case study of the social history of America in the last half century. And I think the essence of the working out of the California dream. As the rest of the world tries to emulate American higher education, and our own state struggles to maintain the goal of access to higher education, our university history, I think, can provide some perspective and can remind us to keep up those ideals. We and our predecessors on campus, in the community, and in the California legislature are the players in the story. And it's critical that we preserve and understand it before it vanishes. Legacy lectures are usually, at least in part, autobiographical, so I'm going to begin with a little of my own history, especially as it relates to the larger history of the university. I really have, I realize now, been extraordinarily fortunate in many ways in my life. First of all, in my education. I grew up in a very warm and supportive family, mostly in the Northeast, where college going, and especially women's education, was a tradition, and where it was something my family could afford, which makes me feel also equally fortunate. My mother graduated from a women's college in 1930, and she was the second generation of her family to do that. So, and that experience was probably the high point of her life and something that formed all the rest of her days. My father, who became an engineer in his native Australia, going to college at night, always thought that his ability to send my sister, brother, and me to college, the colleges of our choice, was his most important success. Although I didn't realize it at the time as much as I do now, I was also fortunate in my education at Mount Holyoke from 1957 to 1961. That was a time and place where, in a tradition going back to the 19th century, women's education was taken very seriously. We were encouraged in scholarship and expectations of civic responsibility in what we would do in later life, and never told that any careers weren't open to us. And I hadn't realized until I got to other places in the world that that was not, that really was at the time an unusual experience. Like many of you, I'm sure, I became interested in my subject, Byzantine history, through an inspiring professor, and then a trip to Greece got me hooked on the topic. It sounds like a very arcane subject, but it answered my historical curiosity. I've always been interested mostly in very simple questions about history. How do people think and feel and believe in other times? And how can we try to understand that, particularly in distant times? And so Byzantium appealed to me. I went on to graduate study in Michigan with a mentor I very much revered, in just a wonderful environment. My education then was at two historically pioneering institutions, Mount Holyoke, which still prides itself as the first institution of higher education for women, and Michigan, where the words of the Northwest Ordinance are engraved on the pediment of the major building, as a reminder of the establishment of education as a public responsibility in early 19th century America. The fact that I've been a fortunate beneficiary of earlier generations of family and educators makes me believe all the more strongly in the California dream of accessible, affordable, and high-quality education for those who didn't have the privileges I grew up with. Serendipity brought me to Long Beach. As I was finishing my thesis, my soon-to-be husband had a job offer in Southern California, so I assumed, as one did in the 60s, that I would follow him and look here. The job register, amazingly, listed not one but two jobs in Byzantine history in Southern California at both Long Beach and Fullerton. I had never heard of either one of them, but I looked on a map and Long Beach looked a little closer to where Al's job was, so I tried that one. And in this very rarefied field, those were about the only jobs there were for several years, in fact, several decades in Byzantine history. So I was lucky enough to be hired over the telephone at Cal State Long Beach. I think Dave and Al and Dave Hood and Al Guns and Albee probably had the same experience, and some of the rest of you who are sort of old Cal State Long Beach faculty. None of this interview and really special going over every aspect of no sample teaching lessons, which was lucky for me because I didn't know how to teach in those days. But we thought California would be an adventure we'd like to try for a while, so out we came. When I got here, I was one of 9 new faculty hired in the history department that year. This was really boom time at the university. And I became one of 4 women in a department that grew to 50 in the next 3 years. Sharon was one of the others, Sharon Seaver. So, I had no idea what Long Beach would be like when I set off in a car from Michigan, and I certainly didn't know that it was a college less than 20 years old in 1967. Had never heard of what the then brand new California state system was. I didn't realize that I was coming to another institution that reflects something as important in 20th century American higher education as Michigan in the 19th. The campus seemed very new and unfinished to me. I was used to those big old elm trees that you saw, and old buildings. Well, now we have old buildings, but at the time they weren't old. And at the time it was new and unfinished. My colleagues included one of the founding faculty of the university, Irv Ahlquist, and other early members of the campus. My generation arrived just in time for anti-Vietnam protests and other rebellious acts that have become part of campus lore, and I won't tell them about them here, but you could ask some of my contemporaries afterwards. And I think in retrospect that we really didn't appreciate the struggles our senior colleagues had gone through to establish a new campus and win the right to faculty governance, a faculty governance structure, something that's very important to us and that we take for granted. The campus was already amazingly large, with over 21,000 students and they were in most of the majors and master's programs that we now have. And the students were significantly older and less diverse than they are today. Here are some of the things I didn't know about the campus I had come to that had taken place in the first 18 years of its existence. First, the background of establishing Los Angeles Orange County Teachers College. That was the original title in 1949. The ideal of free public education, accessible to all, is a very old one in California, going back to the 19th century statehood and accelerated by its progressive politics in the early 20th century, when the goal of training workers for the needs of the state and its regional economy became a political priority. From the 30s, the legislature, predominantly from Northern California, argued for the expansion of the number of existing state teachers' colleges into regional universities, presumably in the district of each of those legislators, because they had a very long list of places that they would like to establish colleges. Over the bitter opposition of the University of California, they also at the time established community colleges throughout the state. Post-World War II planning commissions, as part of the massive infrastructure building to accommodate the huge population influx in the state, put together lists of places to locate future campuses, including Los Angeles and what they called Southeast Los Angeles and Orange County. They, I think, evidently thought that one campus would do the whole thing as a growing area of need. In January 1949, the legislature gave Long Beach a grant of $125,000 to establish a state college. I can see Bill there looking at these dollar amounts. And the city voted $1 million out of its Tidelands oil revenue, the reason probably that they were happy to do that, to support the new campus and buy land from the Bixby Ranch, which was then selling its land to tract developers. The alternative public universities were indeed a long distance, especially in those pre-freeway days. UCLA, a brand new Cal State LA, and San Diego State were the other choices. The legislature's bill cited the, quote, urgent need to provide the increase in population with a general diffusion of knowledge and intelligence essential to the rights and liberties of the people as the impetus for its authorization. I think that's a wonderful phrase, and it is one we could still think of as the essence of why we need, what the purpose of our universities is and why they need us. It's far better than founding President Peterson's description that we propose to offer training to a great group of boys and girls who do not need university, that is UC training, and provide it within easy access of populous areas. That training, he said, was to emphasize teacher preparation, business, and other professions, in which he listed law, medicine, and osteology. The campus was expected to grow to 5,000 to 7,000 students over time. Astonishingly, in our day of long and tortuous planning for buildings, the campus was ready to open 8 months later in September to upper division students in very hastily converted apartment buildings on Anaheim, provided by a local developer with a faculty of 13. This is a familiar story, but until I looked at some of the yearbooks, I had no idea who those first students were or how a complete college took shape overnight. They were certainly not boys and girls. The early Cal State Long Beach students had all completed at least 2 years of college, primarily not at a community college, but in institutions that range from Stanford and Columbia to a wide range of colleges and universities in the Midwest and in California. As a part of the great post-war migration to California, and I think almost certainly with education disrupted by the war, they must have been some of the most motivated and satisfying students any faculty could ask for. About 350 students received their BAs in 1951, the first full graduation, more women than men. And in 1953, the college also granted at least 50 master's degree. I think that's just amazing in 2 years to have done all of that. So I want to show you some early Long Beach students, faculty, and the campus community of those years. Let's see. I don't know, can you, this is establishing, this is the city officials, it's not faculty, but erecting a sign in January 1950 in the apartment buildings. And 5401 East Anaheim Street, you probably know where that is, Lee, I don't. But I think it's still there. So in 1951, they were able to take a picture of the entire campus community, and here it is. I think you can see most of these pictures I have wonderful views of what students look like, what faculty look like, and you can see, it's hard to see individuals, but you could see it was small, it was mixed, and there are plenty of ages in here. These are the founding faculty, and you may, some of you, Dot, you may know, be able to tell us, you may know several of these, but a few of them. I think one of the themes you'll see is that in these early years, the faculty were almost all male. Let's see. Oh, shucks. Yes, these are the first yearbooks are wonderful because they show not only pictures of the students, but they included names, where they'd been to college before, what their home state was, and it really gives you a sense of how the backgrounds of these students, and then there's something else I want to talk to as well. You can see it listed all of the activities that they were in. Whether they were in there. Here's somebody who was the editor-in-chief of the Prospector in the Creative Writing Club, the 49er staff, a sorority, and the music club. And that seems to have been pretty typical of what these students wanted to do. I think you can also see here, and particularly in this, that the students include a wide range of ages. There are some very much returning students. There are probably some of these students are, I don't know, but probably some of them are GI World War II vets returning to campus. And I think one of the things that astonished me thinking about this for 1 and 2 years scrambled together college in an apartment building is that how complete a university the students wanted. They wanted more than classes. From the very first year, the new college seems to have provided a very full college experience, even in the chaotic setting of the apartment buildings. Students, even older students, belong to clubs of many kinds, social and religious clubs, social and honorary, discipline subject matter clubs, little initial sororities and fraternities, and honorary societies, which were also seem to be segregated for men and women. This is just one club, the California Student Teachers Club. All of these clubs are full of people posing and looking very, very pleased, but also quite formal and quite dressed up for our generation. A newspaper, a choir, and an orchestra began in the first 2 years, and within a very few years, there was a full schedule of theater productions and even an opera series that began way back in the early 50s to be presented every year. And I think is probably the beginning of our university's distinction in the arts. I think this is very significant. We all think of the access to college degrees that California provided to place-bound commuter students through these new state colleges as commuter students come, go to class, and go to work. But the students and faculty clearly expected and created more. They wanted a real campus community that would replicate in many ways the traditional college life of the 50s, probably what they had attended earlier and what the faculty thought they would create from them. Students came beyond all expectations, and enrollments rose to over 26,000 by 1971 as the children of the families who lived in the new tracts of this region reached college age, I think Kay Briegel, who's in the back, is the expert on all of this, and I hope that I can find out more about that later. It wasn't until the 80s and 90s that the university population became really diverse. And I want to show you some photos now through the generations of students so you can sort of get a sense of when the student population changed. 1961, students were into prom queens, and there are many pictures in the yearbook of queens in their courts, and you could see the traditional college life that Cal State Long Beach had there. These are the 1961 students. And these are by 1971. You could see fashions changing. There's certainly a lot more hair there. But the students I think look younger by 1971 as more of them are traditional college-age students. And obviously, after the early 50s, freshmen and sophomores were admitted, so the campus had a very different look. In 1971, students were not doing proms, they were doing bands, as far as I can see. 1981 grads are beginning to look more diverse. You're beginning to see, you can see looking at this and looking at the names that we have begun by 1981 to be a campus a little more like what we are today. And I promise you, I picked these pages at random. These are not, I didn't go through. By 1981, this is a scene of the audience as Andrew Young was here as a speaker. And this is campus life in 1991. Alas, I'm going to come back to it. Alas, yearbooks don't have student portraits anymore, and so I couldn't give you anything from 2001. But I think this gives you a sense of how the campus students have changed. And it's, as you know, it's really since the 90s that the university population became really diverse. And the university began to serve a multilingual international population. And only in the last decade that we've become one of the nation's most diverse large campuses. I expect that the early California legislators who enacted the ideal of affordable education for all qualified Californians had in mind the population of the 50s, not the student population we have today. And they might not even, I hope this isn't true, but they might not even have supported the current emphasis on access to the students that we now serve. But the urgent need to provide the knowledge and intelligence essential to the rights and liberties of the people that was in the original bill has never been more important to California than it is now. And succeeding with this more complicated global student population seems to me the most challenging and rewarding thing we can do as educators. It takes the kind of research and attention to student success we've begun, the mentoring that so many on this campus have done for many years, long before it was part of a student success initiative, and really thoughtful teaching to graduate the students of today. But for me, attending graduation each year, watching our incredible range of students and their families celebrate, that's the time I annually renew my belief that the California dream is alive and well on this campus. Now I want to look at the faculty, curriculum, and intellectual life in Cal State Long Beach's history. In its earliest years, faculty were expected to teach very widely in fields they couldn't have known well. Irv Ahlquist told me about 10 different disciplines. He taught economics and sociology and all kinds of things in his first years. Even established what would be a very cutting-edge course today on the history of the Pacific, because he was told to do it. But by the end of the first decade, most majors and disciplines were established, even if labs and studios hadn't yet been completed. And I think that there are some things in the early reports of the difficulties that faculty had trying to do chemistry experiments in some of these apartment buildings and bungalows without. So I thought I'd show you what some of in 1961 they did have pictures of all the departments, and so here is the chemistry department, and I picked this one because here's a very young Dot Goldish in the front. It is one of the few departments that has any women in it, actually.
Could I point out that just to the right of me is Don Simonson, who became acting president.
Didn't a few, and whose bench we just authorized today. And then this is my own history department in 1961. And you can see a very young-looking Alex Lipsky in the background here. As far as I know, we don't take department pictures anymore, but the change in faculty would obviously be as dramatic as the change in students. Some issues have actually changed, I think, only in degree. Tensions over teaching and research existed even then, and I think they go back to the establishment of the state universities and the animosity of the UC to a research mission for state colleges and universities. Although the state university leaders successfully pushed for instruction-related research as part of their mission, even as a largely unfunded mandate. In 1958, the campus listed its goals, and one of the top ones was recruiting new faculty qualified in teaching and research. And when I came, several departments had very strong research cultures. Expectations certainly weren't as high as they are now, but we all brought professional expectations for ourselves. Since I had my two children in the first 5 years I was here, it may have seemed like more, but it was actually 2. And fortunately in the summer, because there were no maternity leave policies then, I was very grateful to be in a place where it was possible to publish more slowly and enjoy my family, although I do remember those years as times when I was very tired. As we look at our expectations for faculty, I hope this campus will continue to develop its mentoring and support for faculty as whole people with professional and personal lives whom we need to support in choices and not expect to be superhuman achievers in everything. Following a recent statement made by King Alexander, I hope we can move out of boxes we label research versus teaching to a more positive valuing of possibilities over a career for all faculty. When I arrived in 1967, the campus was young, but the curriculum I was expected to teach was surprisingly familiar, given the accepted structure of what a disciplinary curriculum was in those days in history and probably in most other fields. Disciplinary boundaries could be fierce. I first met Sim Crowther in an epic battle between history and economics over who should teach economic history. An issue that I must say neither of us could understand. I've had the good fortune to be involved, as Gary said, in the development of interdisciplinary programs that really gave me a great deal of pleasure in medieval and Renaissance studies, in religious studies and women's studies, and later in creating international studies on a campus that I think has not had many barriers to new programs, even if resources haven't always been as plentiful as we wished. It's been a great experience for me to work with faculty and students across disciplines, and I've watched with interest as faculty work on new areas that can only be understood through the collaborative approaches of different fields, like environmental science and policy recently. Some of my most satisfying experiences have really come in working across colleges in challenging programs, and I'd cite the ITEP planning as a model for all of us who worked on that. But all of these need, I think, to be rooted in the intellectual life of the campus community. And I think that the existence of a rich environment for shared learning, creativity, and discovery among faculty and students should be a primary indicator of the health of the campus. Last week, I happened to hear Howard Gardner talk about the synergy of bringing scholars from different disciplinary backgrounds together to work intensively on a problem, something that goes far beyond what most interdisciplinary courses or programs as a style of learning. So I want to leave you with that as a challenge for what could be our next stage. Could the campus purposefully nurture some intensively collaborative study research groups for faculty and students in important topics, moving beyond our paradigm of individual scholarship and teaching? And we have been trying some of that in the College of Liberal Arts, and it is enormously exciting, I think, to everybody who participates in it. Can we bring scholarly and creative disciplines together? This is maybe me with my love for music and arts. Could we be more strategic in bringing together faculty and students to research critical community and regional issues? I want to close with a few reflections on community inside and outside the campus. For me, this campus has been an extraordinary community to be part of, one where connections abound if we can find them. We're still working, I think, on our relations with the outside community. Although we've always graduated students for community needs, our connections with the world outside haven't always been strong in the eyes of the outside world. For years, we had the epithet, as some of you know, mausoleum on the hill. In the last decade, I think that projects like the Seamless Education Partnership with the school and especially the Center for Community Engagement have begun to change that. But I think we still need to work on the very tricky understanding of how faculty, as scholars and teachers, and the institution as a whole can best work as partners and contributors to the community approaches to the difficult social and economic issues of our neighborhood and our region. My other community wish relates, of course, to parking. Cal State Long Beach should be and can be an intellectual magnet for the community as a whole. A place where the rich array of speakers and faculty-student discussion on issues ranging from Shakespeare to the Middle East that take place here every week are as accessible to the community as we try to make athletics and arts events to the community. So my challenge is, can we find a creative way to bring the community in, even on a campus where parking is almost as big a challenge as space? I was speaking last week to a community group of very intelligent and impressive women, and what they wanted was to be able to come to campus to hear our lectures. The other afternoon, as I walked across the campus in the late afternoon sun, looking at the beauty of its green lawn and its now really big old trees, watching groups of students speaking different languages to each other and into their cell phones, dressed in everything from very tight jeans to a veil and hijab, talking about classes as well as about other things, I couldn't help thinking what an idyllic place the campus can seem and has become. This week is International Education Week, coinciding with Geography Awareness Week, and probably several other weeks, I don't know. And the campus is absolutely buzzing with lectures, films, and festivals, and dance concerts, and musical performances. Just what a vibrant intellectual and cultural magnet should be. If I have a history lesson to draw from this talk, it is that our mission and possibilities as a regional university go far beyond what the early California legislators imagined, as our region itself has become one of the most complex and dynamic in the world. I think we're only beginning to see the potential of what we can be for our students, our faculty, and the community we serve. If we can continue to be imaginative, keep our values, and remain supportive of the human needs of the campus community, I think we can accomplish almost anything. I hope to be in some way part of the continuing story of California State University Long Beach. And I want to thank each and every one of you. I have a personal connection with all of you for being such a wonderful part of my own story here over the years. So thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. And I was about to say if any of you have questions or arguments or anything, I'd be glad to do that. Take the. That's it. That's all I know. If you have real questions about the history of the university, Kay Briegel is the person to talk to.
Dorothy, if you'd stay up here. I know all of you share your appreciation for a career that has helped this university grow and expand, and quite honestly, we are a university of endless possibilities. And one reason that we're always constantly looking for what we should be doing and how much more we can do it is because we have changed. We have changed as a university, and great universities do change, but they don't change without great people, without great faculty, without great leaders, without great deans, without great chairs. And Dorothy has been all of this to our campus in every capacity. And our university has truly benefited from the first day she landed on this campus, and still benefits immensely from her leadership. She's been telling me what to do for the last 6.5 months. And she's been right every step of the way. She's been a joy for me to work with, and just to get to know her in the last 6 months. And I can truly see why she garners the type of respect from everybody on campus. If there's one word to describe Dee, to me, it's balance. Great universities have great balance. They understand the importance of engineering, but they also understand the importance of French. They understand the importance and the relationships that exist between these interdisciplinary units that can go out, and then our students go out and are able to use those to build societies in so many ways. Dee has wonderful, wonderful balance, and she has helped this university have great, great balance as we progress into the future. We wouldn't be here without Dorothy, without the work that so many of you do, and without our history. We learn a lot of about our history, and we need to learn a lot more about our history, because great universities do change, and they don't box themselves in, because there's too many forces out there that will try to box you in and box the institution in, because they don't want us to do some of the things that we're doing. Well, we are a university of endless possibilities, and it is because of Dee and the leaderships that she has played a role in so many different capacities. And at this time, I'd like to present her the Legacy Lecture Medallion, which has been given to about 30 of our Over the years, only about 30 people have received this, and this is one of our most prestigious awards, and I'd like to award Dee. Thank you for everything that you've done for us.